Greetings, people who really like the accordion. Problem is, in this video, there won't be any accordion. There will be in the next couple videos in this series, but not now because I have to say this stuff. I have to lay the foundation, lay the groundwork. So, in my previous videos, if you've seen them, you know that most of my life, since I was 7, I've had kind of a strange musical mind, and I went through this long thinking process, a process that was years ago mapped out by the philosopher Immanuel Kant. So I've been through this many times, and as a result, I developed some systems which are featured on my other videos. I showed all my systems, and some of them I really like, and some of them might not be well received, but I have to send them out. I got to send them out. Because I'm the guy who's always looked for stuff. In Western music theory, I wanted to know, is there anything still hidden? Was there anything overlooked? Is there anything that we missed in Western music theory? Is there anything that's worth discovering? Anything valuable? And basically, I wanted to know what does or doesn't work well. What musical things work well together and what don't. Now, most of this stuff you can find in books or on the internet, on YouTube and different places, but I have this weird sickness. I have to keep looking at theory until I'm satisfied. Now, if we go back to my video, Toy Accordion number 7, More Minor Scale Fun, I spoke incorrectly, which I do all the time, but this was just not done on purpose. I mentioned that I developed yet another scale chord system. I mentioned I was working on yet another one, but it isn't really a system. I should have said I have another perspective, or I have another insight, or you could even say I developed kind of a shortcut. All right? So I spoke incorrectly. I didn't mean to use the word system. That was false. And the reason why I get messed up is because I have made, over the years, many failures. I've had many failures in my projects, my thinking, my investigation. I've had many failures. I openly admit that. And I failed at this. I was working on a non-modal, unified scale chord system. Okay, a system not based on the modes, because as you know, my systems presently, my scale system is kind of modal. All right, so I tried to make a non-modal system and I failed, and I also tried to develop the perfect chord. Not perfect meaning flawless, but I'll show you later what I mean by perfect chord. I mean a chord using the perfect intervals, which namely would be the 4th and 5th. So you see, I failed. And one of the great distractions, one of them, was the harmonic series, which I keep talking about. I can't seem to stop talking about it, and I apologize. And another distraction, which I didn't get into, was the circle of fifths. You've surely heard of the circle of fifths, or they sometimes called the circle of keys. So in the harmonic series, for example, which I promised not to talk about, shame on me, there's some profound things in there. And I don't hear anybody talking about it. I don't hear anybody talking about it. For example, here you have, in the octave from C4 to C5, you have twice the emphasis is on the minor third interval, E to G, and then G to B flat, another minor third interval. So there's some emphasis on the minor third interval right here in this octave. All right, that's profound to me. There's the, I hope I'm doing this right, E to B flat, you have a diminished 5th interval, which is also suggestive of an augmented 4. And then you have the actual up here, the C5 to F sharp 5, if I'm speaking correctly, is actually the augmented 4 interval. So in the harmonic series, the very basics, now that's what the fundamental tone of C, it's suggesting things to us. It's showing us things. And why? Well, I think the harmonic series, well, I don't think, I know, it's built into life. Anywhere you have sound waves in life, you have this, especially when you have music. Not a cacophony, not a bunch of crap noise, but organized music. Music that musicians and composers try to make as sweet as possible. So these were distractions, and of course, when I say the augmented 4 here, you also see that it could be considered the center of the full chromatic scale in a sense, because if you look at your regular piano keyboard, okay, you'll see your F sharp here. Hope I'm pointing to F sharp. And then in your chromatic scale from C to C, basically this is your midpoint, okay? So just hold that thought for now. Now remember when I did my System 2000 staff notation and I featured my invention, the multi-designation note, I talked about the importance, the profound importance of the G sharp, which was the note, the tone that helped me finalize the concept and put everything together. So we focused on the G sharp, but today we need to look at this F sharp because it's profound. And the interval from C to F sharp is profound, and it helped me look into things deeper by focusing on that. Just like when I homeschooled our children, I said, if you don't understand something, keep looking at it or keep reading it. I don't care if it takes days, because you're being homeschooled. There's no hurry. We weren't in any big hurry. We didn't care. So just keep looking at it, keep thinking, or just forget about it, and one day it'll pop into your brain and you'll get it. And it did. So when I get back to the my failures, I mentioned the circle of fifths. Now, here's a book, and in this book, okay, you have the circle of fifths, and most books have this. And you can go on the internet, and there's all kinds of videos. People talk about it for hours and hours. Circle of fifths, and they tell you about the tones and how they're arranged in fifths. Or if you go backwards, they show how they're arranged in fourths, interval fourths, and they go on and on and on. And they talk about the relative major key, let's say a C, and then you have A, the relative minor, because they're related. They talk about that. But I looked at this differently. And the reason being is because I was searching for raw material for my non-modal scale chord system. And I failed. But way back in the day when I failed, I still got some benefit. I still discovered something. So what I did was, got the chart out, and I looked at the C major scale, for example, all right? C major scale. And then I know from history and from my research that they said, you know what, let's take the tones of the C major scale. Let's start that scale on A. They moved the A down here instead. And make a scale with those very same tones. We don't alter these tones. They're not altered. And so you end up with an A minor. And that's the relative minor. That's the relative of the C major. If you're talking about your A minor scale and you're doing a lot of work on it, and you need another scale, well, you go to the relative major. It's the relative. Relative major, relative minor. So everybody knows that. So I started here. Back when I was doing that other scale system that I failed at. And I got to the point where I thought, well, when you take those scales, you can make chords. All right? So you have your relative chords. You have your major chord, your C major, and your A minor. I mean, that makes sense, right? And you have an interval here in between those chords, in between the roots of those chords of a minor third. And that's very, very important. Now, but here's another example. Let's say you have an A flat major. I hope I'm speaking right. And then you have your relative minor, F minor. So you see you have your major chord, and then you have your relative minor chord, and then you could show a whole bunch of chords, but it's all the same thing, all right? And you see the profound importance of the interval of the minor third. All right, so that's where I was headed. I was going down that road. Then I thought to myself, in typical Joey fashion, can we continue this relative concept, this concept of relation? Can we continue this? So I took, for example, a C major chord, drop down a minor third. The root is now A. It's an A minor chord. But to get a modal or even, well, to get a modal scale, to use modal scale tones, I could not drop down a minor third. I had to go down a major third to get to the F root. Right, and then here I could drop down a minor third again from F major to D minor. But you see, there was no uniformity. In other words, I had not achieved uniformity. All right? Now, if you can follow that, I'm trying to get to the point. So what happens here is I saw that if your tonal center, all right, if your tonal center, let's say, was C major, all right, you could drop down a minor third, right, major to minor, you drop down a minor third, and I said, well, that's okay, because it's modal and it's relative. It works great, all right? Now, then I tried to start with a minor tonal center, a minor chord, and drop down a minor third to a major chord. In other words, drop from minor to major, but it doesn't work. It's non-modal and it's non-relative. And this is very important. For those who are still here and haven't turned off this video, God bless you. So you have your E flat major tonal center here, your chord, all right? Now, you drop down a minor third and you get a C minor chord. See, most people already know this. And you drop down another minor third, all right? And you want to continue the alternating pattern of major, minor, major. Now that was the idea in the perspective, the potential thing I was working on, the one I failed at. And here's part of the reason. When you drop down and you have an A root, all right, your major chord that you're shooting for does not work. You've dropped down a minor third and there's no compatibility. There's no system. There's no built-in inherent systematic thing that will make it work. And this was part of the reason for my failure. Now, not only that, but this was the reason why in my other video, a toy accordion video, I think it was number 7, that I specifically mentioned in my minor scales, I specifically mentioned why the A major chord tones don't go with any of these scales, because my tonal center was C minor. It was a C minor tonal center, and I mentioned, I said, well, these notes, they don't go with those scales. They just, the tones of the A major scale just don't work. And I didn't go into detail. There's no need to. But if you look at this, here's part of the reason. Here's part of the reason I just showed it. And it's a beautiful thing because you see, when you say that the A major chord or scale doesn't go nicely with the C minor, all right, you're in essence saying that the A major scale does not get along with the E flat major scale, because, oh God, I hope I'm speaking correctly. You see here, if the A major chord or scale is incompatible with this, it is naturally and automatically incompatible with this, because this is nothing more than a mode of this. These are modal tones. So you can jump ahead and say, you know what? This A major chord or scale is not compatible with this chord. And that, for me, was a wonderful discovery, because it now helps me, it opens a little window and lets me peek in to see something that people ordinarily won't see because they're not looking for it. Let's say you have the tones of that E flat major scale that we just talked about. Here's the tones. And let's say you have the tones of the A major scale. Here's the tones. Well, they each of these scales has a common tone. Well, actually they have two, A flat and G sharp, but those are enharmonic. In other words, those are written differently, but they sound the same. But the point is, they have this common tone here. Now you can see that if you stop for a moment, all right? So what we're saying is, if you look at these tones, I just had you look at them. Now you're looking again, and what do you see? Well, you see that when you take the E flat major scale and you take the tones of the A flat major scale and put them all together, you get all the tones of the chromatic scale. And you say, well, I can do that with other scales. Well, maybe you can. But can you do this? See, I stopped at this point. This is where I stopped because I was granted a little bitty window to look in, and I thought, well, maybe just like with those little toy accordions, maybe there's more here than meets the eye. Maybe there's some beautiful stuff in here, and we're going to get to that in the videos where I talk about the blues. Maybe there's more here than just a circle with a bunch of letters on it. So I decided, all right, this is the way I think. This is how my mind works. That I'm going to take this scale here. This will be the C. You can, okay, this circle of fifths, by the way, can refer to a tone. It can refer to a chord or a scale. So let's just talk about, in this particular case, let's talk about a scale. Let's say this represents the C scale, and this represents the F sharp scale. That would be F sharp major, right? Let's say that. So I decided, the way my mind works, you know me, that we will refer to that C scale as the subject scale, all right? The subject scale. Let's see, it's not really a system, like I said, but it's a perspective. It's not a system yet. My brain's going to explode if I keep thinking about it, but I got this far. I got to this perspective. I call it a subject scale. Let me just read this. A subject is that of which a quality, attribute, or relation may be affirmed or in which it may inhere. And the key word here is relation. The subject scale, all right, if you can read that, the subject scale has a relation to, and I call this F sharp major scale, opposite on the chart, just like in astrology. You have your opposite sign, just like in astrology. I call that the aggregating scale, all right? I call that the aggregating scale. In other words, that which, when combined with the subject scale, creates a whole. The subject scale, the aggregating scale, when combined, they make a whole. A whole what, you ask? Well, a whole concept, a theory. So now, at least with this, we can look at this differently. We can have a slightly different look. And then with a slightly different look, we see different things. We see here between the E flat and the A, of course, is the augmented 4, which I mentioned earlier. And between the A and the E flat, of course, it's the same thing, augmented 4. You see here a minor third interval. Remember the harmonic series? I told you about the two minor third intervals featured right beside each other. You have a minor third, which is 3 half steps, minor third, 3 half steps. And so if you look at that example I gave, E flat major to A major, which doesn't work, all right, you have 6 half steps. And what is the augmented 4 interval? Well, it's 6 half steps. It's 6 half steps. And like I mentioned already, the tones of the E flat major scale plus the A major scale give you all the chromatic tones. And you say, well, that's a bunch of crap. Well, what about that common tone, D? The common tone, D, the common tone up to E flat, the tonal center, is 1 half step. A, the tonal center, all right, of one scale, up to D, the common tone, is 5 half steps. And your total is 6 half steps. And I hope to God I'm speaking correctly because I can't see this the way you do. And you have your augmented 4. I'm going as fast as I can. I know this is boring for most people. And of course, here you have on your E flat major scale from your perfect 4 interval to your major 7 is an augmented 4. And then on the A major scale, your perfect 4, your D to your major 7 G sharp is augmented 4. And finally, on this chart, another thing that no one talks about, I looked at thousands of videos. I can't see anybody talking about it. specifiers. Now you call them accidental, sharps and flats. I call them specifiers. In your subject scale, as an example, E flat, you have 3 specifiers, in other words, 3 accidentals. And then your aggregating scale, which we used A as our example, you have 3. And then you always going to have, between subject and aggregating, you're going to have your specifiers total will be 6. It's always going to be 6, no matter which one you do here, crisscross on this chart here. Now, I'm sorry, that's way too long, but next time I'm going to get to you say, what on God's earth does this have to do with the blues? Well, everything. And I'd like to try to prove it. You either say, this is great, we found something that somebody missed, no one's ever found it, or this guy's nuts in the head. You decide. Thank you for being incredibly patient, and good night.